Hey, what's up? Silas here. I'm going to be taking the Hidden Tribes of America test today, as you can see it on the screen right now. This is a new format I'm going to try. I might do more of these because I just have a bunch of different things I'll bookmark and save. And like, okay, maybe it'd be kind of cool to just read this and talk about it or go along with people. And I did the 8 values political test in back in 2017, and I have that up on my blog. I think I'll leave a link below to this here. And this is my blog, Rantathon. It's kind of where I normally post the links if I'm talking about anything in these videos saying, oh, there's going to be links below. I post them on this blog. And there's a few other things I post that I don't actually talk about in videos, but most of the videos I make, I will also post them there. So you can feel free to follow that as if you want as well. And the 8 values test, I got libertarian capitalism. So if that's going to give you any idea of where I'm going to kind of fall on this hidden tribes test of America, but let's just get to the Hidden Tribes Test of America. I'm just going to read the intro and kind of just the kind of introduction to it, give some few thoughts on it, and then jump into taking the quiz. And I might come back to do more of this, but we'll see as we go. So here we go. The Hidden Tribes of America, a year-long project of more in common, launched in October 2018. Polarization. America has never felt so divided. Bitter debates that were once confined to congressional hearings and cable TV have now found their way into every part of our lives, from our Facebook feeds to the family dinner table. But most Americans are tired of this us versus them mindset and are eager to find common ground. This is the message we've heard from more than 8,000 Americans in one of our country's largest ever studies on polarization. We hold dissimilar views in many issues. However, more than 3 in 4 Americans also believe that our differences aren't so great that we can't work together. Now, I'm not American, but I've lived in the United States of America for 17 years of my life and was as a child of a diplomat. So this first situation here is kind of, you'll see it's the immigration impact of the first thing that we get into here, is very near and dear to me. It's something that I've experienced and had some experience with it. But I've also had that experience of being in many different places and many different communities in the United States of America. And that's one thing I've seen. There is something actually called America. There is an idea there. Now, what exactly is that thing? Most of the problems in the world to me exist because of how we define X, not because of what X is. There's a lot of people who are defining America. When somebody says American values, what do they mean? Some people might mean one thing, some people might mean another thing. When somebody talks about immigration, illegal immigrants, some people might have something in mind, these other people might have something in mind. When people have sexual assault, as you'll see here, some people have one thing in mind, other people have one thing in mind. But I think if you actually sit down and actually have a conversation and talk about these things, I think you'll see that there's it's a lot more common ground than people think. So let's go into this thing. So a nation divided, a range of major issues split the country. Which one do you agree with more? Immigration impact. Immigration is good for America, helping sectors of our economy to be more successful and competitive. 51% think that. Immigration nowadays. I dislike the term nowadays. I don't like using it. Nowadays. Immigration nowadays is bad for America, costing the welfare system and using resources that can be spent on Americans. 49% think that. Now, that's a very key thing with the current migrant crisis coming in. I mean, the ongoing current migrant crisis, but there's a migrant caravan right now moving from Central America. It's right now they're in Mexico. They came from Honduras and other places like that. But there's this debate about who should be let in, how should they be let in. The military's been sent in there. I don't know what they're going to do with that. But more importantly, or more pertinently, President Donald J. Trump recently came out and said he might, by executive order, stop birthright citizenship. And birthright citizenship is one of the things that only America is one of the few countries that has it. And as I talked about with the American values thing, somebody was talking about, I just had this conversation on social media with somebody back and forth where they said that is an actual value of the United States of America. An American value is birthright citizenship. Now, we'd have to argue if that is that a value, how do you define value? But you know how semantic I can get in actual defining things, because I think it's quite important. But that's something one of the few countries has. But now with the 14th Amendment, the way it's actually written, it says if you're born in the United States of America or naturalized when you're in the United States of America or under the jurisdiction of the United States of America, this is paraphrasing, then you are a citizen. Now, what does the jurisdiction of the United States of America mean? I lived in America most of the time I was in the United States of America was as a child of a diplomat. So those years I was there going to middle school and high school and college and things like that, didn't count towards naturalization because I wasn't under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. Now, one thing that could happen with the immigrants coming in, like this current caravan, if you say they're actually refugees and seeking asylum and things like that, then are they technically as under the jurisdiction of the United States of America as a legal migrant? Now, if they are under the jurisdiction of the United States of America, they have broken laws by coming across the border, so they should be arrested and put in jail. But then now people say, okay, they're running from this thing. But now, if they're not actually asylum seekers and not refugees who are outside of the jurisdiction of the United States of America, then why don't they just apply like regular immigrants? And I think this is probably what's more likely to happen. There's no way Donald J. Trump is really going to actually go executive order this thing. He's not Barack Obama. He's just, I have a pen and a pen and a phone. I'm going to just make laws that way and move the ball forward, as Barack Obama had said. I think this is an opening gambit. This is sleight of hand type of thing. I think this is something that, out of the deal, the book by Donald J. Trump, he's talked about leading out with something. You lead out with something that is kind of outrageous, so that people are like, no, there's no way we're going to actually accept that. And then you roll back, you're like, okay. Then you can actually deal back, step back, and you still step back to where you want. Let's say you are deciding, I want to sell this thing for $100. You open up and say, okay, I'm going to only accept $250. The person's going to be like, that's ridiculous. There's no possible way I'm going to do that. Now, even if you roll back to half of what your opening price was, you're still getting $125, which is $25 more than you were already okay with buying it. So that's the kind of thing that I think he's up to with this whole situation. But anyway, sexual harassment, that came up very recently with Supreme Court of the United States of America, with Justice Kavanaugh going in and then being accused by Page about doing something when they were in high school, and then people were equating that accusation of a situation that was harassment between people underage to this other accusation that had rape involved, and then now people were equating, saying he's a rapist, and like the main accusation that actually went through to actual court, to the actual Senate hearing, was actually about an assault and not. So there's all these mixed up things, and sexual harassment is commonplace nowadays. 49% think that. Nowadays, using nowadays again a lot here. Ugh. Nowadays, too many ordinary behaviors are labeled as sexual harassment. And with some of these things, I think you can kind of already tell what kind of side I'm going to be on them. White privilege, I think, with white privilege, let's see what they say here. Many white people today don't recognize the real advantages they have. Nowadays, white people do not have any real advantages over others. I think different groups, by definition of them being different, will have advantages in certain things and disadvantages in other things. If they were all the same, then we'd just all be the same. If everything that was good for the goose is good for the gander, we'd all be geese. But we're not. There's a reason there's a group called white people and a group called black people, and then you're going to see there's going to be different things black people are better at or worse at, and white people are better at or worse at. Otherwise, it would just be people. They'd just be the same group of people. But no. So Islamophobia, many people nowadays don't take, stop using nowadays. Many people nowadays don't take discrimination against Muslims seriously enough. Many people nowadays are too sensitive to how Muslims are treated. And this again, 51%, 49%, almost down the middle. Now with this situation again, what is discrimination? How are people treated? This kind of things. And I think this is why I decided to do this quiz in this way. Because the 8 Values political test, it's just up there. And some of these things, the actual questions are rather nebulous. And I kind of want to do this quiz with you guys kind of watching, and you guys can go along with me. Actually, I think you should open it up. It's hiddentribes.us. Let's see where the actual quiz one is. hiddentribes.us/quiz is where the actual quiz is. So you can get that kind of keyed up on your computer or your phone or wherever you're at to listen to this. And then we can go through this quiz together. Because I want to let you guys know not just what my end actual result is, but why I'm answering these questions in a certain way. Why some questions I might just be like, I don't really have an understanding of how you're asking this question, I need more information. But kind of tried to give you guys some thoughts on why I'm actually going one way or the other in some of these things. Okay, so let's see what they say here. Our research concludes that we have become a set of tribes with different codes, values, and even facts. In our public debates, it seems that we no longer just disagree. We reject each other's premises and doubt each other's motives. We question each other's characters. We block our ears to diverse perspectives. At home, polarization is souring personal relationships, ruining Thanksgiving dinners, and driving families apart. I have some kind of disagreement here. I think I've seen this back when I first left the United States of America after being there for, I think it was about from 94 to about 2007 direct. I was just there for those 13 years in school, from middle school to college. And I was looking at the country and trying to understand my place in it. Like, me as a foreigner, most of the people I knew actually didn't even know that I was a foreigner, didn't even know I wasn't a citizen. But that's just part of how they accepted me, but I knew I wasn't. And I felt, okay, I'm not really a part of this. And then I left the country, went back to Europe, came back to Kenya, and eventually came back to the United States. But during that process, I was kind of seeing how there are tribes in the United States of America. Even a simply thing like having a sports team. How you have people who live in a certain area and they have a certain sport, or people who live in certain locations in the United States of America have different slang and things like this. And I don't think it's become a set of tribes. I think it's always been a set of tribes, but they've had that one united idea of the United States of America. I think it's always been a multiracial, and tribes do go on races. And I think there actually might actually be some genetic things on this, because they've done tests like twin studies and say, okay, do the two twins vote in the same way politically, even if they've been raised in different families? And you normally find they actually do. So I do think there actually are some situations of actually your genetics and hormones and things like that that actually count towards how you vote. But regardless, I do think the tribes have existed. I think they're just more out in the open now. I think just the increase of sharing of information, the stakes are higher, there's a lot more to lose. Just the fact there's also a lot more to gain, and so much has been gained that I think people feel there's a lot more to lose in this situation. But let's actually get to the quiz now. I think let's just jump to the quiz. Yeah? I'm going to jump to the quiz now. So this should be enough time for you to actually get stuff up. He's talking about the exhausted majority here. But this is the kind of things that I agree. And I don't think this is souring relationships and ruining Thanksgiving dinners. Because if you just talk about these things and you don't have the time to actually converse and explain where you're coming from, then yeah, I can see that happening. But I think if you don't talk about them at all, you also don't really know if you have those connections. Because some of these things are rather important and worthwhile to actually know. So let's go to the quiz. It says 8 minutes to complete. Find out which tribe best describes you. Answer questions on your views about the world, and our algorithm will tell you which hidden tribe fits you best. So let's just jump right in there. So quiz, 8 minutes to complete. Here we go. My connection is a little slow, but let's go. YouGov. It says it's not going to collect any personal information and doesn't ask you to do anything, so that's kind of okay. Okay, now I haven't been living in the United States of America over the last year. The last time I was living there full time was back in 2017. So right now did go back to visit friend's wedding. But with these kind of things, I'll just talk about in general. So some of them donated money to an advocacy group or political organization. I probably would have, but I don't know if I should put that if I probably would have. Let's just pretend in this situation, if I was in the United States of America, what do I think I would have done? I think I probably would have donated. I do have some actual friends and things like that who actually are running for office and things like that. I probably would have donated to them. So let's just put that as an interim. Just bear with me on that one. Attended a protest rally or march. I actually was attending a lot of these things to actually film the things. There's some videos on my channel of me doing that. There's been some events where I definitely would have attended. Attended a political meeting. As I mentioned, I've actually been to the location that's been in the news right now in New York City, the Republican Club. And I had some friends who were actually there during the recent Gavin McInnes talk, who had a situation where there was a fight outside with Proud Boys after and things like that. I actually know a few of the Proud Boys. I don't know any of the Proud Boys that were actually arrested for that thing, but I know a few people in the New York City Proud Boys. So attended a political meeting. I think that would count as a political meeting. So yeah, I would have done that. Donated blood? No. Not giving you my blood. It's my blood. Not giving it to you. Donated money to my place of worship? No, I am a religious across the board. I would not donate to a place of worship. Voted in a local election. Now, even if I was in the United States of America, I wouldn't be a citizen at that time, so I wouldn't have voted. So with this one, I don't know. I'm counting if I was living in the United States of America rather than if I was an American already. If I was an American already, would I have voted for my local friends if they were in there? Probably. And there's like Larry Sharpe, I don't know, he's a libertarian candidate. I'd have looked into that. My whole take on voting is different than it's been in the past, so I don't know this one, so let me not answer that. Shared political content on social media. I do that a lot. It's the thing I do for like all day, every day. I do that whether I'm there or not. Called Congress a political representative? No, I don't think I would have gone to that point, even at this point. I don't necessarily think that would have been effective for me personally at that point. So let's just go with that and move on to the next step. Which one of these would you have done, or do you think my reasoning behind is faulty? Okay, which statement will you agree with more? Government should take more responsibility to ensure that everyone is provided for. People should take more responsibility to provide for themselves. Now, I'm an individualist. I think definitely more responsibility to provide for themselves. At this same point, government provides some kind of structure and some kind of agreements and should be government by the people. So even government should be people, responsible people who are providing for themselves through government, not the other way around and relying on it. Now, this is before they're talking about things like welfare and things like that. Like, who is actually supposed to get welfare? Like, should I be actually this is one thing I was kind of feeling like with the public school system is one of the things, for example, with the whole situation where there's property taxes taken from people in a certain area, and then those schools in those areas are, I think it normally gets into the state and then it's divided by the state, but it's normally like different locations actually have the money going directly to those locations. But even if you don't have kids, your kids are getting them. But I realized what taxation was, and I realized I was attending public schools, public middle school and high school in the United States of America, and I was like, did we really pay into this? Should I really be using this money from people? Now that I went through that system and it benefited me in the ways that it did, should we get to the point where like I give back in some way? How do I give back to the country and things like that? Does that make me part of this? So there's all these things to it, but I think personal responsibility above all is a lot better. Once you get to that point and people are free to do that, people are able to do that, and people are a lot more industrious than we give them credit for. But if you have the chance to have somebody do something for you, it's a lot easier to kind of just sit back and let that other person do it. Even if that person isn't doing it to the best, to a level where it's as good as you think you could do it, or somebody else could achieve it, or you could probably put your mind to actually do it, the fact that somebody else is doing it for you will also allow people to let things kind of slide. The whole tragedy of the commons thing. It's like, oh, that kid is kind of slacking off. That kid isn't really doing that well. But oh, no, it's okay. That kid's in school. That kid's going to school. So somebody in school will deal with them. Then the person in school will be like, okay, the teacher in school will be like, okay, should I deal with this kid? But no, that's what the counselor is going to do. Then the counselor might think, should I deal with this kid right now? No, that's probably what the parents are going to do. So this kind of hot potato type of thing gets pushed on when you have this kind of government responsibility. That might have been a horrible example. But definitely, you can see where I'm going to go with this one. People should take more responsibility to provide for themselves. Okay, which statement do you agree with more? People are largely responsible for the outcomes in their life. People's outcomes in life are largely determined by forces outside their control. So for me being a-religious, where do you think I'm going to go with this one? Definitely largely responsible for outcomes in your life. There's definitely going to be things that are handicaps, like a literal handicap. If you're born without a leg, that's going to handicap you in a certain way. But then now when you don't have that leg, what do you do with it from there? For me, an example with me, I traveled around, my family traveled around as I was growing up. Now that's going to affect me in a certain way, but still, I can't hold them entirely responsible for my actions now, past that point. It's still up to me. Who do I talk to? What do I do? What kind of videos do I make? What kind of job applications do I make? What do I apply for? How do I try to get to these places? How do I make sense of my background and things like that? There's still things that are out there that can actually help you or hurt you. Now, when we talk about this, I think this is normally, I am thinking this question is more couched towards the whole situation of privilege, where it's like, what privileges does somebody have over someone else? Now, with my lifestyle of having lived in 3 different continents, does that make me more privileged than your average Appalachian white person who just grew up in some small village that's entirely welfare, inundated with meth and meth dealers and things like that, living in a trailer? Is that white guy there more privileged than I am by virtue of him being an American citizen and me not? So, or would him being able to travel and do all those things give him a certain privilege? Because a lot of people will see, like, if a white person had money to travel around and the ability to do that, it's, oh, that's because the person is privileged. But I did that. Does that make me automatically privileged? So there's a lot of things I think I could tell you about my life without tying in a race or a person or things like that, that you just think those are privileged. There's a lot of same things I could tell you about those same exact experiences that may look as a handicap. But I still do think the agency comes into it and people are largely responsible for their own outcomes Sorry, people are largely responsible for their own outcomes in life. It's their own outcomes, by definition. It's called their own outcomes. So their own outcomes are things they're actually responsible for. So this question is kind of out there. But anyway. Okay, how much control do you feel most people have over the way their life turns out? So this is kind of easy. From that first one, I think it's most. People who work hard can find success no matter what situation they were born into. Some people's situations are so challenging that no amount of work will allow them to find success. Now, again, let's talk about the whole situation here. What is success? How are you defining success in this situation? Again, as I said, you are most of the problems in the world exist because of how people define X rather than what X is. I've been recently watching a lot of shows on these My 600 Life, just people who are obese, people who are having issues. Now, some of them are talking about all the bad things that happen to them in their life or how hard it is to do things. And yet some of them are like, I understand my responsibility in this. I understand bad things happen to me. And again, adverse childhoods almost always affect the situations. I mean, okay, so most of the problems in the world exist because of how we define X rather than what X is. And I think a lot of the things that we see actually going on in people's lives as adults, instead of realizing these are actually things that run from childhood, because the adverse childhood experiences where certain things are not considered abuse. And I have an entire series on that, the Hands Up, Don't Hit series, talking about that thing. And it's really sad. This is just a little aside, but I would feel I'm not doing justice in this situation if I don't talk about this whenever it comes up. But a lot of these people who are obese were actually, turns out they were sexually molested as children, and then different things kind of go up with that. They have a lot of enablers. You'll have these people who are very young, they're like 2 or 3 and things like that. I'm talking about, I was already a big kid. And I'm like, you weren't going to the store and buying things when you were that young. Your parents were buying you these foods and things like that. And a few people did admit, yes, my parents would love me to death with this. And I'm like, they're literally loving you to death. And first of all, it's not love, but they're literally killing you by feeding you that stuff. That's some kind of abuse. That's some kind of neglect. That's on the parents. And then you had some situations where the parents were enabling, other people were enabling. Couples, like the person who was taking care of them. Some people were moribund. They couldn't, moribund, is that the right term? But they were bedbound as well. They couldn't actually move from their bed. So somebody else was going and buying them this crappy food and bringing it to them and things like that. And it's just horrible, horrible situations with that. So when you talk about that kind of situation, you have those kind of limits. What I was kind of talking about in this situation, you have people who are 670 pounds, just one guy, and then he was like, okay, what's your goal? He was being told, what is your goal of weight loss? And the guy was like, I just want to get to 300 pounds. And with him, that would have been a success. Yet with your average person in the United States of America, in the world in general, getting up to 300 pounds is a huge failure. Because I do know there's a lot of very large people, but in general, these people are like morbidly obese. Getting down to 300 pounds was going to be a great success for this guy. Yet, for other people, getting up to 300 would be a failure. So what is a success in a weight loss thing? People have different definitions of what success is. So I think in this kind of situation, why I'm going to go with people who work hard can find success no matter what situation they're in, is when it comes to that situation of the agency or being aware of yourself, being aware of your limitations and your abilities, and then you can define success to fit what you can actually achieve. Some kind of realistic things. And I do know, aim high, so even if you do fail, you can still get rather high. I mean, aim higher than high and things like that. You can even fail high. But that's the kind of situation I'm going with this. Yes, I know there's going to be times where somebody, like I talked about, if you don't have a leg, there's going to be certain limitations. If you're born with Down syndrome, you're going to have certain limitations. How successful are you? But then you're going to be defined, your success is going to be defined counting for the actual, I think, uncontrollable things in your life. I'm talking about the things that you can actually control, the things you can actually do something about. So yeah, I'm going to go with people who work hard can find success no matter what situation they were born into. So which of the following played a greater role in getting you to where you are today? Hard work and effort, or luck and circumstance? As I've mentioned, there are some things that just happen that go around, and I still think this one is kind of 50-50. And not 50-50. Hard work and effort. I think most of the things that are leading me to where I am might be a lack of hard work and effort, because I do think there's things I can improve on. So I'm going to go with hard work and effort because the luck and circumstance is kind of things. I think luck and circumstance has more kept me from falling as far back as I could have been, but the hard work and effort, lack of hard work and effort, is kind of what has kept me not to achieve as much as I think I can. And that's why, I mean, I'm more happy with that because I think that can also mean there's still a lot more for me to do that can actually improve my whole state in life. So this could also just be special pleading or just rationalization to kind of fit my life, but I'm going to go with hard work and effort for those reasons. And it's actually more lack of hard work and effort because the things I've actually put hard work to and effort to have really turned out pretty good. Now, the things that I haven't put that much to, don't turn out well because I haven't put that much effort to it. And that's how I look at it. Okay, for the following pair of traits, which one do you think is more important for a child to have? Now, this is going to be with my whole background in non-aggression principle, peaceful parenting, and things like that. I think you can kind of assume where I'm going to go with these things. Definitely go independence. I want my kids to be independent. And from the beginning, I think that's what a successful parent does. That's kind of one of the few jobs that you do. Your success at that job is how little you're needed after you've been successful at that job. I think that's kind of one of the few jobs in the world that's like that, where your success does not create dependency. It more creates independence. If you're very successful as a parent, your kid doesn't need you, but still, as them not needing you, they'll completely want you to be in their life due to all the things you gave them. And they will be able to realize that through the peaceful parenting and that kind of relationship. I am very confident of that. Haven't had the chance to experience that myself as I'm not a parent, but if I do, I'm confident that that will be the actual result of it. Okay, obedience or self-reliance? Again, self-reliance, I think, is a key thing in this situation. Obedience, like, by idea why I'm not going to respect for elders here is because of how I think people are defining respect here. Respect is earned. I think if you're giving somebody that ability to be independent, they will respect you in that sense. I don't want them to respect elders across the board because somebody just being older than you is just a luck and circumstance thing. They just happen to be born before you. Someone older than you could also be less capable at you at a lot of things, especially with this change of generations. I want my kids to be more capable than I am in a lot of things rather quick as they grow up. Now, child, what are the ages they're talking about here? And this kind of thing I'm talking about this. If they're talking about with different kind of ages here, what kind of ages are they talking about here? I'm thinking child is going from 0 to 18 in that situation. So respect for elders, I don't want them to just default respect for elders. I want them to actually respect anybody who earns their respect, not just elders. Now here, obedience. Again, with obedience thing, I think if you're self-reliant, you're capable to do things, you're already going to understand other people being self-reliant. If you are self-reliant and you are capable, you will also understand who is capable, and I think you'll be able to be in a situation like, I know I can't do this thing because I know all these other things I'm capable of doing. So if somebody who can do something that I can't do comes and do me, I'll obey them on that, but I don't want them to just have obedience. Just obey me because. Why? That's my idea. Self-reliance, that's where I'm going with it. Well-behaved or creative? I'd go with, on this one, I'm going to go with creative, because well-behaved, what is the behavior thing? I mean, my kids, I'll raise them to be respectful enough and things like that. I'll raise them to be honest. I'll raise them to be aware of people around them. But I think creative, I'll take that over well-behaved. Because I don't think they'll be brats by being creative. See, like a question like this is kind of tough. It's like, what does creative mean? What does well-behaved mean? Would I rather my kid be artistic? Is creative in this sense where they're just like, oh, I'm just going to make things up out of nowhere? Is that what creative means? Is making lies up creative? Or just well-behaved? Because sometimes well-behaved could also be lies. It could also be like, I'm going to lie that I really like being in this location right now because I think that's being well-behaved. I'd rather my kid be honest about them not being in that situation, even if they're telling me in a creative way, like, oh, this is a ridiculous thing. And then if they're in that situation they don't want to be in, but we have to be there for a certain situation, let's say it's some kind of like meeting in my office and I have to be in a location and I have to take my kid with me and the kid's not happy, I won't want them to just sit there and be like, yeah, I'm enjoying this, I'm nodding, I'm smiling, and inside they really hate it. I'd rather they come out and be like, yeah, this is kind of frustrating, and be like, okay, we have to be here, so let's make a game out of it, and then we can be creative together and make that kind of some enjoyable kind of environment in that location. We're going to go with creativity. Now, curiosity or good manners. I think with the same situation here, I'd rather curiosity. If my kid ever has a question, no matter what the time is, unless I've specifically told them there's a very few specific situations where you're not supposed to ask questions, or if you do a certain thing, it's bad manners. Like, so there's going to be regular things where I'm going to be like, I'm also going to understand my kid's level of curiosity enough to be like, okay, I don't think my kid can be in a certain place at a certain time. If I understand this is it's a very it's such an environment where people have to behave in a certain way for whatever reasons, and I don't think my kid's actually going to be able to tie those manners. I'll either find a way for my kid not to be there, or get to the situation where I'm not there. These are things that I'm hoping. I do get to go to be situations that might be where, like, okay, it's out of my control when my kid has to be there, and then his manners might be a situation. But again, I think I'm going to have taught my kid to be independent, self-reliant, creative enough to get those manners fitting well enough. So good manners, what does that mean versus curiosity? I would rather curiosity. I'd rather my kid ask as many questions about anything whenever the kid wants to ask, and be in a situation where that kid can ask and be answered as many questions as possible at all times. I'm going to go with curiosity. Got a long way to go on this test. So, okay, here we go. Next one. So how much do you agree or disagree with the following statements? These days, the rights of immigrants are more protected than the rights of American citizens. Neither agree or disagree. Because, okay, who are the immigrants here? Are they talking about legal immigrants? I think they're talking about legal immigrants, because we would have said illegal immigrants. So, for example, somebody just moving to the country, I definitely don't think, I'm actually going to go with somewhat disagree. Can neither agree or disagree. I don't know. I don't think they are, because if you're immigrating, you're under the jurisdiction. I think in general you are treated the same. I mean, because the person pulling you over to begin with, what would be the rights? What are the rights that are actually discussed for here? The right to enter the country? Because I think that might be where they're kind of focusing on this thing. They're saying, okay, illegal immigrants or people immigrating in, people are more focused in general in the United States of America to newer immigrants coming in than they are to the Americans who are already here. And I don't think that's the case. I'm going to actually disagree somewhat with it. I think America is still more focused towards Americans, and I definitely think it should be more focused towards Americans than the immigrants. It's up to the people moving to that location to kind of adjust to that location. Just like I was talking about previously, if I know I'm going to somebody's house, and that person has certain rules at this party, this event, and I need to take my kid there, it's up to me to say, I'm migrating to this location, I am bringing my child in there. I have to kind of know what you expect from me in this situation and adjust to what you want in that situation. How much do you agree or disagree with these following statements? These days, it seems the rights of black and brown people are more protected than the rights of white people. Again, I disagree with this one. I don't think they are. People talk about the white genocide, talk about white people are under attack, then you have people on the other side, Black Lives Matter, the police are against them. I'm like, no, you guys are focusing on minor situations. I think in general, when I try to ask people, show me the evidence of a white genocide, show me the evidence of a systemic actual attack on black people. And I often find that that's not really the case. So I'm going to go with disagree. I'm going to go strongly disagree. I'm going to go a little further disagree. With this situation now, these days it seems rights of black and brown people are more protected than the rights of white people. Now, if I strongly disagree, does that mean I'm saying that white people are protected more? So I'm going to go with the middle. I'm going to say neither disagree or agree, because I don't think anyone is more protected than the other one. Okay, how much do you agree or disagree with the following statements? These days it seems that the rights of Black Lives Matter protesters and activists are more protected than the rights of police. I'm going to go with agree somewhat on this one, because I think some of the things they kind of get away with, I don't know, because what kind of protesters? I mean, the rights to protest are entirely different than the police. I mean, the police themselves are enforcement agents. They're enforcing the laws. The kind of expectations that police have are entirely different from the expectations you have of protesters. Protesters in general are coming out because they're normally angry and at least against one thing. They're normally protesting in some kind of disagreement with something, whereas the police are trying to force some kind of, if they're enforcing this agreement to these laws that are kind of set there. So I think it's already different. I think in this situation they're trying to say, are Black Lives Matter protesters allowed to get away with more than the police are allowed to get away with? sees the rights of Black Lives Matter protesters and activists are more protected than the rights of police. You see, like with some of these questions, I don't necessarily know where they're coming from in this kind of situation. And this, you might just say, I'm just trying to trying to not answer the question here. Be you might think I'm just trying to be intentionally difficult with understanding this question, but these are some of the issues that I have when I'm taking some of these tests. I don't know if you find yourself with these issues anyway, because what would strongly disagree mean? Strongly disagree would mean the police are protected, I think, above and beyond the Black Lives Matter people in whatever crimes the police commit that's against what they're supposed to do as police. Now, this is also saying that strongly agree would say that Black Lives Matter protesters, it seems like I'm saying they're allowed to get away with anything and everything. And I would go towards they're allowed to get away with because the blocking of highways. But how much have they actually gotten away with? How much are they actually achieving from what they're actually supposed to do? It's a tough situation. I'm gonna go neither disagree or agree. Apologies. This is just on the fence in a lot of these situations. But I hope I'm actually giving you enough explanation of why I'm not answering one of these things one way or the other. So, which do you agree with more? People like me have a say in politics. Politicians don't care about people like me. Now, I've see now this comes with the whole identity politics thing. What would I define a person like me? I think, as just an individual, I think in general, politicians don't care about people in the individual basis. I think, by definition, being part of the state, they think about people in groups. So, what kind of group would I consider myself to be part of? An immigrant group. I definitely, if I was living in the United States of America, I would be considered as part of the black people, even though I don't necessarily self-identify as that. As I think black is more like a United States of America thing than a whole like international thing. So, with this one, I would have to go with politicians don't really care about people like me. I mean, people have say in politics. But then, at the same point, what's the say in politics mean? You see, in this situation, again, the semantics of this thing is very key. What does having a say in politics mean? Like, I do publish things, I do post things out. Some of you guys talk to me in these videos. It may not be that big of a thing, but I'm thinking about the people that actually know how far away I am from people who actually have done a lot more, who seem to actually do move needles on situations. So do you have a say in politics? Could I possibly go out and actually do something to get to a point where you move a needle some certain way? Have I actually had conversations with people on political issues where I think actually convinced them to change some idea that they had? Have I had situations where people have talked to me about things that have changed my ideas and things? And I think they have. Then you kind of have a knock-on effect. So at this point, I think we do have some say in politics, but I also don't think politicians care about me. And I think I'm going to go with more like politicians in general don't really care about you. They care about you only if you're going to be able to get them for votes. And this is most politicians in general, so I'm going to go, they don't really care about people like me. Which do you agree with more? The American government is mostly rigged to serve the rich and influential. The American government mostly reflects the will of the American people. Okay. Now with this question, I think the American government as it is right now is actually a reflection of the will of the American people. And part of the will of the American people was to kind of step back from politics and have other people deal with that stuff. Because the state continues to grow. It says, okay, we'll do this for you. And then you're like, okay, we'll let you raise our kids. Then they start raising the kids, and the kids come out and they're more into the government raising them, more into the growth of the state and things like that. They don't really answer back to the state. And then that becomes more and more of the American people. This is just one example of the things. And then the people who are coming out of these schools have been raised by the state, so they have more of a parent-child relationship with the state. So the parent, once he sings, they have that dependency kind of in them. They're like, yeah, we don't mind. What do you mean, America? What do you mean these freedoms? What do you mean the power of the people? What do you mean be the people? What do you mean the Declaration of Independence? What's all these things? No, we need the state to do this for us. We need them to do this for us. No, not that. We need this other thing to be done. Taxation is part of what we pay to be in this society. These kind of things come out, and I do think it is actually a reflection of the will of the American people and the rich and influential. See, it serves the rich and influential. By definition, influential people are influential. So whether it's rigged or not, by being influential, you're going to have higher influence. So this one, I'm going to actually go with the American government mostly reflects the will of the American people. But it might not be for the reasons that this actual question was out there. Because I do think the government itself, the state itself, has engineered a certain environment for its own growth. Now, part of the reason I really did support someone like Donald J. Trump becoming the president was he's returned things into the actual, into the town square, if you have. People are more involved, people are more engaged. Now, that could just be a continuation because Barack Obama did use social media in a way and get some people more tapped into it, but I think that was in a different way than it's happening right now. There's a lot of situations now you got to be on one side of that. You can't just like ride the fence. You can't just pretend you haven't heard of this thing. He's out there, he's actually causing a situation, causing many ripples out there, and I think getting a lot more people more engaged back into politics. So I'm going to go with the American government mostly reflects the will of the American people. But I think that might be actually wrong for me to actually use that here because that's a situation where I'm saying the American people, I think, have gotten into a situation where it has set up a situation where their direct influence isn't really that close. And that's why I was also saying politicians don't really care about a person like me. So through that reasoning, should I go with the rich and influential? What do you guys think? I wish there was a way to actually have like someone in the live chat where we can actually talk about these things. But okay, the American government is more rigged to serve the rich and the influential versus the American government mostly reflects the will of the American people. Let's go with mostly reflects the will of the American people. So which do you agree with more? Because that's the thing. I think a lot of American people have a lack of will when it comes to politically. They're just like, and now they're like, okay, wait, what's going on now? Let's actually get back involved. So I think that's going to happen. And it also is a situation with the Constitution, which I have read the Declaration of Independence, which is an amazing document. And I think it is still set up for the people to have as much say in any other country I can think of. So once the people are actually activated, those systems are still there. They haven't been taken away. People may have may have put those powers down and given them to somebody else, or at least hired somebody else to do them. Let somebody else make those decisions for them, but they still have the ability to make those decisions, and I think you'll see that happening, and it's the continuation of that happening as the American people take their power back. So yeah, which do you agree with more? American identity is disappearing nowadays. There's that word again. American identity is being strengthened through diversity. So as I talked about, I'm not really quite understanding what the American identity is. I mean, I've been trying to understand to see if I can fit into that, or if am I considered American? Am I American enough? What are American values? What is an American identity? And I don't know. And you see, when they talk about the diversity here, what kind of diversity are they talking about? You can have a multi-racial culture, but you can't have a multi-cultural society. That's what I mean. Sorry. You can have a multiracial society, and America is one of the most successful ones. It's the first successful one, as Dr. Victor David Hanson has pointed out. But having a multicultural one is not really something that can happen. You can't have a situation where this is defined as a single culture, as a single society, yet it has some values that are diverse. Because when they talk about here diverse, this diverse doesn't mean opposed to, but it also doesn't discount that. Because you can have opposing ideas. Some ideas don't necessarily match other ideas. Like, if you truly believe there's one God, that can't really coexist with somebody else who believes their God is the one God. So if you do have a religion there, some kind of faith system there, you can't have a society that truly has a diverse, that truly has two different kind of single gods, monotheist gods. So that's even that situation that's opposed. But can you have a diverse way of looking at one God? And that's kind of what I used to think it was, where it was like, oh, the Abrahamic religions are really talking about the same God. They're just looking at it in a different way. One person calls it Allah, one person calls it Jehovah. It's kind of the same thing. And I think most people are in that point. So, if we're talking about diversity, in the actual diversity of ways of talking, languages, ideas, things like that, then I think diversity can be a strength. Because you have, what's it called? Distribution of labor. If we have diverse abilities, then it could be like, okay, I am good at this, and I am not as good at, let's say you say, okay, I am good at making videos, but I'm also really good at drawing. Let's say I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, I am both 10 at making videos and drawing. Then somebody else might be a 2 at drawing, but an 8 at making videos. it would kind of make sense for me to be like, okay, we have diverse abilities, so you make videos and I'll go back to drawing, because he's we only if we sorry, if we come together to do that thing, then we're only like reducing the ability of actual video creation by 2 value points. Yet if I decide to keep making videos, and then he does the drawing, then the value point there reduction is actually 8. Is it 8 or even more? Things like that. Because it won't be 8 because you'll still be holding the 2 there. So it's about 6. I don't necessarily know how the economical math will go there. So I think diversity, American identity is being strengthened through diversity. I think in this situation, I'm going to go with that, like diversity is a strength. Now, with diversity as a strength, what necessarily would they mean? You see, some people might mean diversity as a strength and then think, okay, that means white people are under attack. We just want less white people and we just want one kind of diversity. I'm going to go with being strengthened through diversity. And I mean, the whole disappearing nowadays type of thing, I don't think it's definitely disappearing, because there's definitely the whole "Make America Great Again" thing. I think that whole American identity is on an upsurge. So even just by itself, an American identity going down, I don't think it is. And I think the diversity aspect of American culture is there. I think you can still get a situation where diverse people come in and they say, "This is my kind of American. This is how I'm going to fit into this whole American tapestry of people and things and values." Okay, would you say things in the country are headed in the wrong direction or the right direction? Most definitely the right direction. It was going in the wrong direction, but I think Donald J. Trump and a few other things have definitely helped it take it back in the right direction. And the world today is much better than it's ever been in the history of the world. I think part of the reason it's a lot more testy, there's a lot more to lose. And now thinking about the next 5 years, do you expect things to be better, about the same, or worse for American society? I definitely think much better. And this, again, might be part of my own rationalization in order to try to move back to the country and be part of there, see my friends there. And just from what I've seen with the development, I think things are a lot better than people think they are. I think a lot of people are panicking right now on both political sides, all sides of the political aisle. But from what I've actually seen of the United States of America, what I know about history, what I've seen about other countries, I think it's a lot better than people think it is, and it will only get a lot better as more people talk, more people engage, more ideas get out there. The state loses its ability to just stranglehold things and manipulate things and make things odd. That's going to make it much better. I think the next 5 years, it's going to be into Trump 2023. It's going to be season 8, or it's going to be going into season 9, going to season 7 and 8 of Trump's administration. Things are going to be amazing. Things are going to be much better. Okay, please read the following sentence and indicate your agreement or disagreement. Compassion for those who are suffering is the most important virtue in a person. I do not think it is, because suffering is... Let's check the definition of suffering. But I don't think compassion is the most important virtue in a person at all. Now, I'm going to go with moderately disagree. Not strongly disagree, because I think it is important to be compassionate, but to what kind of suffering? Because some suffering, I'm trying to think of some of the things I have suffered through in my life. As I mentioned, there's some things I could say, could be like, wow, that's a horrible thing. But some of those things have made me stronger. And some of those things I suffered through actually were due to some of the actions I made, or in action that I had. So it was kind of a situation where, like, I did these things and the results of my actions brought suffering onto myself. Now, that's a whole different situation than just like a kid being hit by their parent. That's a different kind of suffering. I still think there's kind of compassion there, or some understanding. This person had a tough background, so this and this happened, so I have some compassion there. But it shouldn't just be suffering across the board. Now, in this situation, I think they might be defining suffering as just that whole suffering where somebody has not actually brought something onto them. Because somebody might say, if you've actually done something and you're suffering through it, then that's actually some kind of justice or some kind of punishment, so it doesn't really fit into the suffering situation. But no, even just across the board, I don't think compassion is a most important virtue in a person. No, I'm going to go moderately disagree. Please read the following sentence. So that's going to be these couple. So when the government makes laws, the number one principle should be ensuring that everyone is treated fairly. This one I'm going to go with strongly agree, slightly agree. Because now this is ensuring that everyone is treated fairly. I think when you have a situation like that, everybody should be applied to the law. I mean, my whole situation with being an anarcho-capitalist, it doesn't mean I don't want laws. It doesn't mean there's no place for government in an anarcho-capitalist society. There's no place for a state where you have lawmakers who are above the law. There's definitely places for people. We set these rules, everybody lives by these rules, and these rules across the board fall into this. If you commit a crime, no matter who you are, if you've committed X thing, then Y punishment comes. I mean, now it comes to the point where, okay, you have compassion. Now you have to say the situation, like, what's the background this person came in, those considerations that go in there, and things like that. But I think the laws itself shouldn't have situations where it's like this group of people is going to deal with this law in a different way, yet this group of people will deal with that law in a different way. So have a situation like everybody over 18 gets treated in this way. Male, female, whatever, you get treated in this way. White, black, Asian, whatever, you get treated in this way. So I think strongly agree that the number one principle should be ensuring that everyone is treated fairly. Because it's true, like the criminals shouldn't be treated. Should criminals be treated fairly? I think, yeah, I go strongly agree. But you see, I think that might be more like, oh, that's being thought of more getting back into the laws where we should have like affirmative action. I don't think we should go as far to like affirmative action to try and redress, like try to redress handicaps of the past. I don't think the government should be involved in that. The government should be like, yes, most of those laws that the government had back then that actually caused these inequalities are messed up, but we shouldn't try and solve that with causing more inequalities today, because I don't think that's the way you're going to solve some of those situations. And most of these things in the past that you can think back and say like, okay, that actually handicapped certain groups is normally due to state involvement. Now, adding the state back in there is not going to solve that situation. So I think that's why I'm thinking strongly agree. Just equal treatment in that sense, but affirmative action and things like that is not equal treatment. So affirmative action is off the board in the way I'm actually understanding that question. So I'm proud of my country's history. What I've actually heard about American history is something that I am going to go with moderately agree. Thinking about all the countries out there, from what I've heard, just because in general, I just don't strongly agree with the histories of any country, and I can't really think of any other countries where I know the history of it, and I'm like, okay, I feel like some kind of connection, I think it's kind of good. But in general, I think the United States of America is a lot better historically than a lot of other countries. And I've talked about part of this, why United States of America. I had a video talking about how white slavery is always going to be the worst kind of slavery. And my main point of why it's always going to be the worst kind of slavery is they snitched on themselves. They told on themselves. They make movies about it. They write books about it. Then they do it in the language of English, which is one of the most popularized English language in the world. So it seems like America has done a lot more bad things because they're a lot more open about their history. They took a lot better notes about their history than other people, and more things keep coming out about the things they did historically, and the bad things are always going to stick out more than the good things. So there's that kind of situation there. So I see that there, and I kind of think like, okay, yes, we know more bad things about the United States of America, not because they did more bad things, but just because they wrote down more bad things and told the world about them. So I'm going to go with moderately agree that I'm proud of the country's history. So respect for authority is something all children need to learn. So with this situation, I'm going to go with moderately agree. Actually, let me go with strongly agree. I think children definitely need to understand what an authority is. Now, actual authority. Now, this situation is not just any authority. What sort of authority? Actually earned authority. Not just, I am stronger than you, so I'm going to hit you. That's not authority. That's oppression. That's dictatorship. You can have that kind of control over somebody and not really have authority over them in that sense. I'm talking about authority in the sense where it's like, I go to my dentist because they are an authority on dental things. So I kind of respect their authority on that. They've earned that through different kind of experiences. So that's the kind of authority I'm talking about here. Yet I don't know if that's necessarily the authority they're going to be meaning here in this kind of thing. But I strongly agree, earned authority is something as a parent you need to establish with your kid, that I am actually an authority in this situation. You're going to defer to me on certain things, but at the same point, understand that child is in a relationship with you, you have this responsibility over them, but you can still include them in their whole process of this relationship you have with that child. So strongly agree though, authority is definitely something that people should respect. But authority is also something like respect is earned. Both those things are earned, and there's bad authority and good authority. So yeah, it's not just across the board. Respect my authority. No. Please read the following sentence and indicate. So, okay, people should not do things that are disgusting, even if no one is harmed. Now, listen, whatever. Do whatever you want. If you're disgusting and no one is harmed, do whatever you want. There's things that I probably do on a regular level that some people may consider disgusting. And this, again, is why I was talking about with the whole situation with the societies, with the cultures. What kind of diversity are you talking about? Are you talking about just different views on things? Or are you talking about opposing views on things? Because if you live in a society where you think women need to dress in a certain way in order to be respectable, and then you see a woman dressing in a more open way, look, by definition, if you truly believe that a woman is modest and respectable by being fully covered when in public, and then you see a woman out there in a halter top with her waist showing, cleavage out, shorts, booty hanging out and things like that, that is the opposite of respectful. That may be disgusting. Now, is anyone harmed in that situation? Yeah, her value in a different society might say her respect for herself might be, but that's something you're going on to them. But in that kind of situation, that person may truly think this other person is being disgusting, and I don't think anyone is being harmed. They may argue that, oh, you're harming the eyes of the people around you and their abilities to do this and this, but I'm not going to put that into harm. But in that kind of situation, I think that person might consider that person shouldn't be allowed to wear that kind of clothing. But I think if you do whatever is disgusting, no one is harmed, go ahead and do it. Now, this is, of course, a privacy of your home situation. Do whatever you want in the privacy of your homes. I have no problem. Strongly disagree. Do as many disgusting things as you want, but at the same point, be ready to accrue people being disgusted with what you like. Talking again with the fat acceptance movement and things like that. I was a lot more overweight before, and it's gotten to the point where I think I am disgusted by overweight people in some sense, at least the appearance of it and things like that. Not by the people themselves, but just even thinking about how my mentality was to actually get to that point. I am disgusted by the mentality it takes for me to have been obese. So I kind of project that onto people sometimes, and I don't really think there's happy obese people. I really don't think they are. Maybe sumo wrestlers, but then they truly obese. They're actually doing that for a different kind of sense. But just people you kind of see who are just obese, that whole jolly fat man thing, I think is a horrible thing because I don't think they're actually any jolly fat people. But anyway, so I'm going to go with strongly disagree. Do whatever you want. If you want to be 600 pounds, go ahead. Just don't have me try to accept it. I'm not going to accept that lifestyle. I'm not going to accept that from you. I'm going to accept your mental decision to end up as a 600 or 650 pound person, but you also accept my mental decision to be disgusted with the way you look on your lifestyle choices. But I'm not going to stop you from doing them. Okay, so strongly disagree. One of the worst things a person could do is hurt a defenseless animal. So yeah, mostly disagree. Moderately agree. Strongly agree. One of the worst things, yes, a defenseless animal. And guess who are animals as well? Every human being is an animal. Definitely one of the most disgusting things you can do is abuse children. Because I think the most important animals on the planet are humans. So the most disgusting thing you can possibly do is hurt a defenseless animal. Defenseless human. And the most defenseless humans that exist are humans in the parent-child relationship. That's as defenseless as you can get. Even in a situation with chattel slavery with adults, they could still constantly try to escape. There's most situations where those adults would actually fight back. They could commit suicide, which is an actual out. It's a horrible out. It's one that I probably wouldn't take if I was in chattel slavery. I'd probably keep trying to escape or just find ways to get my horrible situation to the least horrible level as possible, and then from there try different forms of escaping. Then I can't even get to that point where I actually can think about what kind of situation would actually go to suicide. But with a child, that kind of relationship is ridiculous. You are their God, and they have no ability to leave, to know something else, to even understand their plight. And yes, so most definitely one of the worst things a person could do is hurt a defenseless animal. Strongly agree. And this also goes as far, I don't have pets, but yeah, it goes as far to like the whole pet situation, abusing dogs, cats, and things like that. Now, this is one situation with my whole dietary situation. It's made me really consider actually just cutting back on meat just because of the way animals are treated in the whole agriculture industry. And that stuff does make me think twice. But again, I think the most important animal is humans. So if it means 500 cows need to be mistreated so like 5 kids can have some food, I'm more towards the kids having food. And then I currently think I am the most important human. Still not married, still don't have any kids. So once that happens, once I get married and have kids, I will be a little lower on the totem pole. But right now, I am the most important human, and I do understand some of the decisions I make may lead to other animals getting mistreated, and that kind of does get to me sometimes. But something I do need to kind of think about more and see where I'm going in that whole situation. But yeah, strongly agree. Okay, please. Okay, so justice is the most important requirement for society. I think, yeah, yes. Again, that's the purpose for I think a government to kind of set there and set the laws and set the kind of structure that we all agree to live in, and people come to that location say we agree to live in this way, and then if we want something changed, we need to come and have some kind of system to change these things. And there's a kind of agreement there. And I think by definition, that's what society is. Once you start having injustice, then you have societies dropping. Once you start having politicians who are above the law and can make laws that you have to live by, but they don't, it starts breaking down a society. Once you have people who are like, everybody here is following this law, but then we're going to have these entire group of people who can just come into this place that don't have to apply to these same laws, and we're going to make a little like exception for them, then why do we have to follow these laws? So yes, justice is the most important requirement for a society. There are things like communication, like shared communication, which help to enforce the justice. Because can somebody understand the laws that you're having there? Can you actually tell the person you've actually done this wrong? Yes, we understand. Can that person communicate that they do it because they think this is right? And can you communicate how that thing is wrong? But I think all that communication and all these things are applied in order to be able to maintain justice. So strongly agree, I'm going to go on this. Because what is a society? Otherwise, it's kind of groups of people hanging out. But I think once you get a society, a group of people together, I think justice is. See, I don't know if it's the most important, but let me go with moderately agree. Because you could probably convince me that there's some that might be more important, but I don't know. So people should be loyal to the family members even when they've done something wrong. No, I'm gonna go with strongly disagree in this situation. Now, this could be partially due to the fact that family here, I think they're talking about is relatives as well. I don't think you choose your relatives. You get born into your relatives. That's again the whole luck and circumstance thing where you kind of just get born into the family. You don't pick that. Family, you make your family. I think it's the kind of situation where your family comes in. When you marry somebody, that becomes your family. That normally becomes closer than any blood relative that you have. And then you start your own tree of people from you. And you start your own life, you start your own family from there. And I think with that one, that kind of situation, yeah, you stick by your family. So even when they've done something wrong, should be loyal. So you can still be loyal. Can you still be loyal to somebody and still want justice to be served to that person? Like if somebody, there's a lot of situations where you see people aiding and abetting criminals that are their family. Like if you're in a situation and your wife commits a crime, are you supposed to just lie for that person? Is that what loyalty means? Or has your wife been disloyal to you already by committing that crime? Did they break that loyalty? Because you have this kind of situation, people say blood is thicker than water. As I already mentioned, family is not necessarily blood related. People are adopted, you marry people, you adopted, so I said adoption thing. So that kind of situation, you see some of your friends become family. You get to so close to a friend, and then they have kids, and you're like, yeah, that's my niece, that's my nephew. You still have that kind of relationship. You could actually have family members that are blood related that you've never met in your life. Are you just supposed to be loyal to those people automatically? Like all of a sudden you find someone and you're like, okay, this person has stolen from you, or stolen from a close friend of yours, and you never really knew this person. And then it turns out your mom's like, oh yeah, that's actually your cousin. Are you supposed to be loyal to that person over your friend? I don't think so. But then now your friend would be closer to family. So what do you guys think of this? I think moderately disagree with this one because I think family should be held to a higher standard. That whole situation, I think part of the problems in this world, again, because of not because of what X is, but because of what people define X as. Now, I think if you define family as people who care for you, who love you, who share the same virtues, who share the same relationship, same values that you do, then there's going to be less chances for you to have to test your loyalty to that person. There's going to be less chances for that person to do something that you consider wrong. So there's going to be less chances to do this. So I think when you get to that point where you have that kind of family and they do things that are wrong, I think you should still get to the situation where your loyalty doesn't abet their crime, doesn't go along with it. So now, me saying that maybe have people be like, "Man, that's rough. You ain't supposed to do it. You're supposed to stick around the fam." And they have that in some cultures where it's like, "Yeah, you stick to the fam, whatever, no matter what they do." And I would definitely be a lot more understanding to a family member that committed a crime and give them time to actually let me know why they did that, and they could probably convince me to why I should not just turn them into the authorities or something like that. Because I think that's kind of the general case that they're talking about here. But I'm going to go with moderately disagree. I think if someone has done something wrong, especially if they're your family, I think that counts even more, where you're supposed to hold that person to a higher standard. Be like, look, this person is family, this person is close to you, this person might be around your other family members, and they're doing wrong things. Hold them to a higher standard, set them on the right path, and I think you'll be better for it. And I would appreciate that from people who I consider family or consider me family. If they see me messing up in my life, don't just sit there. And that's another thing, going back to that whole video I was talking about, the videos I was talking about with the obese people, how you have people being like just people enabling each other. And they're talking about, this is my family, I care about these people. Yet they're just buying them however food. They're all getting obese together. They're not realizing that each other are depressed and addicted to these things. And they're like, oh, I didn't see this. And people, like, no, you're killing each other. You're supposed to care for each other. You're supposed to be the first ones to say, look, there's something messed up here. We need to deal with this. So moderately disagree. This was supposed to take 8 minutes to take, but I'm enjoying this. Thank you guys for actually staying along and watching this if you've been with me through this whole time. So let's go. Let's keep going. I think we're getting towards the end here. Men and women each have different roles to play in society. This one I'm going to go with strongly agree. Again, if everything that was good for the goose was good for the gander, then we'd all be geese. By definition, by having these different definitions of men and women, means these are two different groups. Two different groups, by definition, not going to have the same responsibilities or the same abilities. So yes, most definitely. A simple one, I think societies were put together in order to help. If you take reproduction out of understanding how life forms behave, it's going to be a lot harder to understand things. So once you understand that, you're going to realize that in general, women are going to be more selected towards bearing children, doing whatever is needed to bear children and care for them in those first couple of years. And men's responsibility is going to be going out there and obtaining the kind of resources so that woman can take care of that shared offspring that they have in that society or that direct family, your direct offspring in whatever way. So there's going to be different responsibilities from that. We physically have different bodies. There's sexual dimorphism. There's different hormonal balances, like hormones that we have. There's so many different things that show that, yes, we are a sexually dimorphic species and we are going to have different roles to play in society. Now, this is again, what is a society? What are the important things in society? Can we have these diverse ideas? Can you have people who think women are supposed to not do this thing at all, and then these other people think women are supposed to do this thing that's entirely opposed from that? Now, if you have that kind of situation, can that society exist? If they're opposed, no. If it's diverse, then yeah, you just have a different understanding and you say, okay, because of the challenges faced in one society, in one location, in one situation, you're going to adjust the roles. Because the challenges faced in this other situation, we're going to adjust the roles. That's a division of labor. So that kind of diversity thing definitely applies. I'm not going to say they're set in stone where women have to do these things, but there are going to be some things that women in general are more equipped to deal with, and there's going to be certain things that men in general are more equipped to deal with. And one thing I'm really thankful for is playing American football in high school, in college, and actually seeing that kind of situation where you had a diverse group of people working towards one goal, where we all had different roles to play in that team. And once we actually did those roles together and supported each other in that way and trusted each other, we actually achieved a lot of really good things together. So diverse does not necessarily mean opposed, and also diverse does not necessarily mean one is more important than the other. So yeah, I'm going to go with strongly agree on this one. I would call some acts wrong on the grounds that they are natural. Okay, now with this one, it's very tough for me to actually define what unnatural is. Now, what would people be considering natural? There's a lot of things that humans do that people say it's unnatural, but I think everything humans do is natural. This whole idea, like, oh, natural causes versus human causes. Humans are a part of nature that's the best part of nature, and we have the ability to control nature and mold nature as much to our own actual needs and things like that. Like, do you consider computers to be unnatural? Like the computer itself, like, is it unnatural to have the internet? Is it unnatural for me to be actually taking this test? Is it natural for me to have drawn what's on the screen there using a pen tablet and things like that, getting those different colors? Is it unnatural that this is being beamed through, this information is being beamed via satellite to some kind of cables that are coming to this thing in my house, and then that Wi-Fi router is sending signals back here, going back and forth in this kind of situation, and then I upload this onto YouTube that has servers all over the world, and it goes under this undersea cable. You know how crazy just the undersea cables are? The undersea cable goes from like Africa to somewhere in Europe, and then goes, beams it up to the sky or something, then gets beamed back down off of some satellite, and then you guys are actually listening to that now because there's some kind of speaker technology that gets some things and then gets it in your ears, and this is coming from this microphone. Yeah, I'm saying these things are all just entirely ridiculous. And do you consider those unnatural? I consider those part of just results of the greatest thing that nature has produced, which is humans. Because realize that humans are at the point where we might be able to get DNA from things that have gone extinct and bring them back to life. We are going to be the first, at least, life form that we know of that's going to be able to return life forms that nature itself selected out of existence in whatever way. If it's an asteroid, if it's just dying off, whatever it is. But that is absurd. That is amazing. So, unnatural, no. I definitely strongly disagree. Not just that alone. And I think this might be going more into the whole situation where it's saying like, oh, homosexuality is unnatural. So this, by answering a question like this, it might take me more to the political left kind of situation. Because maybe I should be thinking about these more in the political sense. What would these questions mean in the political sense? What would unnatural in a political sense mean? And I think in a political sense, it would be like homosexuality and things like that. Now, specifically on that, I think any kind of sexual interaction that we have that's not tied directly into reproduction is by choice, is a preference. From having a monogamous heterosexual family, man, woman, 2.5 kids, white picket fence, to a polyamorous situation with a bisexual couple that doesn't really sleep with each other, that decides to have some kind of artificial insemination and or a surrogate or adopt kids and live in some kind of commune and things like that. All those things are just preferences. So one is not more natural than another. Polygamy, polyamory, all these things are just preferences. So I don't think any of those are unnatural. But anyway, solely being unnatural, because I think in the definition of what natural is, I can't find something that I think I would think that is unnatural. I'm going to think that's bad due to that. How about junk food? I don't know. Anyway, keep going. Oh, no, I need to go back. I did that wrong. I would call some acts wrong on the ground that are unnatural. I know, strongly disagree. Sorry. So yeah, you can do that. If you answer a question wrong, you can go back, which is a good feature. Generally speaking, would you say most people can be trusted, or that you can't be too careful dealing with people? Now, you see, this is a tough question. Most people can be trusted with what? Most people can be trusted to a level. It's this, I'm not going to trust, I'm not just going to like leave my kid with some random human being, but can I trust that the cashier is not going to steal my money if I leave it somewhere? Um, I'm going to go in general with this one. I'm going to lean towards like you can't be too careful dealing with people. And this is kind of the tough thing. Because some people will say that we need a government because you can't trust people. Yet they'll also say that government needs to be elected by those very same people that you can't trust. So I can't trust people to make a decision for themselves in their day to day life, but I can trust them to make a decision that's going to affect my day to day life. So that's kind of the tough situation you kind of find yourself in this situation. So most people can be trusted. Now, if they were kind of giving an example here, I would say trusted to what level? I think most people can be trusted to a certain level, and you shouldn't just be treat everybody exactly the same. Your family members are going to have a different level of trust than you would a random stranger on the street. If you have a certain thing that's wrong with you, you go to a specialist in that situation. I'm not going to trust a random person on the street and be like, oh, what's this rash I have? I'm going to go to like a dermatologist and like, what's this rash I have? Because that person's going to be more specific with it. So you can't be too careful in dealing with people. Most people can't be trusted. See, like this is a tough one for me. I don't know where I'm supposed to go in this question. Um, Most people can't be trusted. I'm gonna go with you can't be too careful with dealing with people, because I think in that situation, I think you always err on the side of caution. I think that's a kind of smart thing to think of. And once you're careful enough, you see, if you're too careful and you kind of think and you get to this point and then you're like, okay, I've been careful enough and checked, crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and I know I can trust this person to that level. And this is part of why I'm saying earlier, like, I think it's good to actually have certain conversations with quote unquote family and people like that, because now you're careful, now you actually understand have what kind of reason do I have to believe this person is going to be a family member? This person is going to be there for me in this situation. So you have to be, I think, kind of careful on who you deal with, who you bring into your inner circle, who you accept as your family, who you say you love and care for, and things like this. I think people need to be more careful about that. So I'm going to go with you can't be too careful dealing with people. Okay. To fix America, we need a strong leader who is willing to break the rules. Now, with this one, I wonder what rules. Now, are they unjust rules, or are they talking about the actual rules of the way things are done? You know, like Trump is breaking all these social, as a politician, he's not supposed to do these, he's not supposed to do that. He's breaking the way things are done. And I didn't really agree with the way things were being done. I wasn't really too enthused with that, the establishment and things like that. I was completely these unspoken rules. Now, I don't think he should break something like the Constitution. That's what we were talking about earlier. We're just doing the executive order to break these things. I think there's a process to actually set those rules. So what rules are they talking about? Are they talking about social contract type of rule, or are they talking about the Constitution type of rule? Now, this whole thing of, oh, you can't say this, oh, you can't do that, oh, this offends this person, oh, this triggers these people, oh, you have to care about the feelings of these people. Those kind of rules, I definitely think a strong leader needs to break those things up, and I think that's what President Donald J. Trump is doing. But when it comes to this point of breaking the rules, the actual laws, I don't think people should do that. Now, would they have said laws in specific if they were talking about the laws? I think they would have. So, if they're going to fix America, we need a strong leader who's willing to break the rules. I think this is leaning more to like the social contract, to the unspoken rules and niceties of society, the way good people are supposed to speak and purport and carry themselves. So this one I'm going to go slightly agree, because I think that's what they're going with, but I don't want it to be the actual laws in case. So yeah, if I had some clarification with this and I knew it was this, the social things, I would go on with strongly agree. So the world is becoming a more dangerous place. Strongly disagree. I've thought this for a long time in my life in general, that we just have more access. Bad things are always going to stick out more than good things, and we have more access to hearing about everything that happens. So even though we hear about 100 more good stories than we did 10 years in the past, we also hear about 100 more of the bad stories. And those bad stories are going to stick out a lot more than the good stories. An abundance of good things, an increase of good things happening in your life is not going to stick out as much as even a fractional increase of the bad things happening in your life. Think about this. If you just feel better, you just have 20 more days of the next week. Okay, let's say you had 1 week. Now, this is not going to be a good analogy. Let's not go with that. In general, what I'm saying is the world is becoming better. If you want more specific and thought out and laid out actual ideas of this, I suggest you read the book by Robert Pinker, The Better Angels of our Nature, How Violence Has Declined, and just goes into how the world was a lot worse in the past than it is today. A lot worse. And more information is coming out about just how bad it was, and it's horrific. Yet it's going to give you, at least it gave me such a sense of just pride and happiness of just being part of this human species and seeing how far we've come from and realizing how rough people had it in the past and still did these amazing things. So people who are complaining about how horrible it is now need to realize like it could be a lot worse. I'm not saying your problems don't exist, but people have made it through a lot darker times with a lot fewer resources to do good things than we have today. So keep your head up. The world is getting far less dangerous. So the world is becoming a more dangerous place. Strongly disagree in the strongest of senses. I wish there was some other further on thing on this one. I strongly disagree. In the last 12 months, how often have you or your family gone without enough food to eat? I think never. Felt unsafe from crime in your home. There was some kind of shooting that occurred in this neighborhood. Now, this is kind of a tough situation because you're saying, can I think like what is the United States of America? Now, I have some relatives. My brother is in the United States of America. My sister is in Italy right now. My parents are here in Nairobi, where I am. And there was like a shooting in the neighborhood. So with this one, I'm just going to go with my actual location. And yeah, there was unsafe from crime in the home. Even when I visited some friends in the United States of America, it wasn't direct crime, but there was somebody who had like pulled over into one of like their driveways, and they were kind of sitting there and kind of wondering who is this person. So there was a bit of like a dicey situation, like what's going on there. So not often, not, almost never. So I'm going to almost never. There was like one or two kind of situations. Gone without medicine or medical treatment that you needed. The only person that I think has had needed medical treatment in this time is my mother, and she was able to actually get it. So I'd say, well, there's a few things you can't get because just here, being here in Nairobi, you're going to have less access to certain things, yet there's still a lot of access to a lot of things. So I'm going to go with never because she actually still in a process of actually getting the stuff. I personally haven't had need for luckily I haven't had any need for medicine or medical treatment over this. Okay, I had a cold. I got some medicine for that. And I was okay. Okay. So yeah. What proportion of your friends have a similar level of education as you? I've done some post-grad courses and I'd say more than half have. At least like yeah, more than half. More than half have a similar level of education I do. Trying to think about this. About half. I'm going to go with about half. Because most of the people at least have their degree. And say, like, I don't really have any people I would consider direct friends that I associate with on a regular basis that don't have a undergraduate degree. So that's it's more than half. No, about half. And, like, who's done a postgrad courses? Because mine was, like, a certificate course in animation. That was after. And so I'm going to go more than half, about half. Let's go with about half. About half, yeah. What proportion of friends are the same race as you? Now this one, my friends are all over the place. We got people who have Taiwanese background, Jewish background, mixed race, German backgrounds, white. Some people in Italy, people here in Kenya, people in all over the United States of America from different places, and Cubans. So, yeah. What proportion of the same race as you? I would go less than half. Definitely less than half. Especially when I really do think there actually is a difference between this like African people. Because here it even goes to like the tribe situation. People are very well aware of the tribal situation here in Kenya. So it's most definitely less than half. What proportion of your friends have similar political views as you? Now, with this situation, I'm very open about my political views, and I do imagine it can push people away. And with friends, with the definition of friends, people I talk to on a regular basis now, I know I do have acquaintances and things like that from back in high school and probably college that we've kind of moved apart of. And with most of them who have actually reconnected with, who I was close friends with back then, we may have certain disagreements in politics when it actually comes up. We still have conversations about them. But I think most of my friends that I actually deal with on a regular basis are actually similar political values than I am. Now, I think if somebody some political values are completely just against each other. Like if you're just like really pro-abortion, I really have very staunch, like okay, with a simple thing, the pro-abortion thing. I don't know with the pro-abortion thing. Like even talking to the people about pro-abortion, what do they define as abortion? Where's the point of it? I think most people, when you actually ask them, where do they define life beginning? It's really hard for somebody to be pro-abortion and identify that position and then still be pro that. Most of the people I've found who are pro-choice in that kind of situation, I don't say pro-abortion, but pro-choice in that situation, don't really define a point in their mind where life begins. My attempt when I was more pro-choice to actually try and identify that point where I say, okay, now this is just some cells and this is some life form, failed. I couldn't identify a comfortable point for that. So at that point, I got very against that. It was like, let's try and have as few situations where that's even an option as possible. So that's kind of my journey on that. So I would go with more than half have similar political views because I do think I'm strong enough in my political views and I consider it very important that I would hold my friends to those same things. I find these values important and I value people who hold those things as values as well. And I think if somebody is opposed to my values, they probably would not get along with me that much anymore. I think I would just automatically kind of we just drift apart. So I'm gonna even go with definitely more than half. I would definitely do think there's people I would still be okay with discussing with. Maybe once we start discussing, we'd find that we can't be friends anymore. But hopefully, I'll get the time in the next couple of years to talk to some of these people more and maybe actually get them on the channel here and actually have some conversations where we can kind of understand where we differ in these things. But yeah, so there we go. At least with one thing I do know, I have a decent amount of friends who are religious, and I am a-religious, and we still seem to get along on a lot of topics and things like that. And I have a very few friends who are actually on the center left or to the left that actually occasionally will engage me in some debates and things like that, which I actually really do enjoy and thank them for it. So some people seem to follow what's going on in government and public affairs most of the time, whether there's an election going on or not. Others aren't that interested. Would you say you follow what's going on in government and public? I'd say most of the time. I spend a lot of time, or some of the time. I'm thinking about the amount of time I spend online, and a lot of time with sports, a lot of time just talking to friends. But then we have certain groups where they're political, so we'll talk about political issues. Then also a lot of time reading manga, anime, and things like that, and doing my art things, occasional work. So I'd say in my free time, I'd say some of the time, but then most of the time. That's like what's exactly going on in government now. Which government on public affairs? I don't really know that much about the local government here in Kenya, which is a tough thing. I think I would know more. Do I know more than your average Kenyan? It's like round the way. Yeah. So I don't know. I definitely think I know a lot, like more than your average American about American politics, at least following this day to days. And I might need to take some time off, sit back, and actually work on a few other things. But I'll go some of the time. How well do the following words describe your feelings towards America today? Angry. I'm not angry, so not at all. I'm a little disappointed in people. So not very well. I mean, I'm angry at the people who are so anti-America or just so dogmatic in their ways of idea and don't want to actually have conversations and actually try and meet people in certain ways. I'm angry also at the people who are kind of just like, oh, I'm not going to deal with this. Oh, what does this have to do with me? It has a lot to do with you, and I think people should care more. So, not very well, but I'm somewhat perturbed by that. Scared? Definitely not. No, not at all. Not scared for the United States of America. I think there's a lot to lose, but I do, as I mentioned, I do think it's heading in a better direction. It might get a little worse before it gets better, but I think things are going to get better. Disillusioned. Um, I think somewhat well. That's the kind of thing where I'm like looking at people and sometimes I just really don't get it. I'm like, am I focusing on the wrong groups of people, these small minority groups on the fringes, and not seeing the general populace that much? And the general populace might actually be a lot more capable than I actually am giving them credit for. Excited, most definitely. Very excited for the things that are happening. I mean, every day I kind of hear more things. I'm like, wow, I would really like to be a part of that. Or I think this is going to benefit not just the United States of America, but the rest of the world. Just seeing how things are fitting in and the effects that it's happening on other places, like what recently happened in Brazil, just a little that I know about it, it seems like it's a very exciting time. And when I occasionally hear things happening here in Kenya, I'm like, oh, that actually seems similar to this. And I think I'm very excited about this general world politics that I know of, and United States of America. Confident, again, I'm also very confident that things are going to get better. I don't think it's going to be easy. That's part of why I make these videos, because I do think it takes effort and things like that to actually get this done. But confident. Hopeful. I don't think I really need that much hope in this situation. I kind of have seen enough things, and I'm at the point where especially with someone like Trump, I don't really get to a situation, President Trump, I don't really get to a situation where I discount or I don't want to underestimate what he's doing anymore. I think he's a very intelligent human being. I think he definitely has, I know he has access to a lot more information and resources than I possibly can understand right now. So I just kind of put like, yes, he's done his part. Now it's the part for the rest of the Americans and other people who are interested in doing this in the world to actually take part and now do more things. So what am I doing to achieve the kind of positive things that I think would help my life and life of other people and my hopeful future kids if I get any? So I don't think hopeful, I'm going to somewhat well, but I'm not relying that much on hope. It's more just like trust and understanding that, yes, this is kind of the trajectory that we're going in. Frustrated, again, I think that might fit well more in the anger. Instead of angry, I'm not really angry at people, I'm more frustrated with people. So I'm going to go somewhat well on frustrated and go with angry. I'm not really, I am angry at some people. I'm angry at people like in Black Lives Matter. I'm angry at people like Hillary Clinton. And they kind of bother me. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Demsosh Bay. She seems like a well-meaning person, but she does anger me sometimes. Like, how can you be in that kind of situation and then be an avowed socialist? And don't you know what's anyway? So moving on. We're almost at the end here. Maybe like 2 or 3 more. So yeah, that's all. So click here and see the profile description of your tribe. Let's see what we got here. So thanks for bearing with me on this, by the way. So traditional liberals. What? 11% of America. So let's see what we go with here. Why did we go with traditional liberals? So 73-year-old, 11% of Americans. I think some people's situations are challenging, and no matter how hard they work, they can't get ahead. Wait, did I answer that on the wrong? That's why I don't like the Republican Party. They don't want to help. I think some people need help, and the government should help them. The 73-year-old woman in Texas, traditional liberal. The traditional liberals reflect the liberal ideals of the baby boomer generation. They maintain idealistic attitudes towards the potential for social justice in America, yet they're less ideological than the progressive activists. They also are not as intolerant of conservatives. They have strong humanitarian values, and around half say that religion is important to them. Traditional liberals are significantly more likely to say that people need to be willing to listen to others and compromise. They are the most likely group, along with progressive activists, to handle conflict by getting to the heart of the disagreement. So overall, traditional liberals respond best to rational arguments, are inclined to place more faith in the viability of American institutions, even if they're disillusioned with the country's current direction. So main concerns: leadership, division in society. Compared to the average American, 36% are likely to disapprove of Trump, 93% versus 57%. 11% are more likely to handle conflict by getting to the heart of the disagreement. I mean, how else do people handle conflict? You're supposed to get to the heart of the disagreement. So 12% are more likely to say that the people I agree with politically need to be willing to listen to others and compromise. 17% more likely to say we need to heal as a nation. 8% more likely to say that it's very important to believe in freedom and equality. 8% are more likely to be over the age of 65. 7% are more likely to be white, and 19% are more likely to have graduated from college. So that's my whole traditional liberals. Kind of surprised with that, but let's see what they say about the other kind of sections here. And as I said, my 8 values political test, it was libertarian capitalism. That was like a different kind of thing. Economic axis, capitalist, diplomatic axis, balance, civil axis, liberal. So okay, there we go, the liberal thing. And societal axis, neutral. So let's go and see what they say here. I think there was something here I'd seen before, the kind of different sections they have. So progressive activists, traditional liberals, passive liberals, politically disengaged, moderates, traditional conservatives, devoted conservatives, and this is the exhausted majority, and the wings and wings. I have a question here. Why is moderates, everything right of moderates, considered to be a wing? Why isn't everything in the right wing? You see kind of how they're phrasing this thing. So what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the questions in this? Do you kind of understand why I picked one thing or the other? If you listen to most of my content on my channel, so I could have just been misreading a lot of these questions. If you listen to most of my content on my channel, people would probably consider me to be a conservative, devoted conservative on the right. If you just listen to my things and I wasn't showing my face, didn't have just writing my stuff, and you didn't have an identity to it, most people would probably think I'm like an alt-right type of person. That's why when recently they were talking about the white nationalist and things like that, supporter Donald J. Trump, oh, you're just a white nationalist, and people are like, oh, I'm wondering, like, I share a lot of the things. I support Trump. I'm not against Trump. Yet, would I be considered a white nationalist for the same things that people consider Trump a white nationalist? Now, where would you think I would land on this kind of situation? Where do you think you'd land in this situation? If you haven't taken the test as I was going through, what would you have answered in this situation? Try to go in there and think. And like I'm saying, there's some of those questions I kind of explained my rationale with picking one or the other, and some of them was kind of like on the fence with, that if I had answered a few things differently, my definition can switch to one or the other. So what do you guys think about that whole situation? Do you think these kind of tests actually are accurate? Do you think I fit into what you think is a traditional liberal from what I've said? If you've been listening to my channel, do you think what I've said before is more traditional liberal? And which of the questions that I answered do you think I was wrong in what they were asking, what they were thinking? Do you think I should have thought about it in a different sense, in a more strictly political sense, or try to think about what they were thinking as they asked the question versus how I kind of read the question and actually answered the question? And that's, again, some of the problems in the world exist, most problems in the world, all problems in the world exist, not because of what X is, but because of how we define X. So somebody may define me in a certain way, and then just all of a sudden, like, you're a conservative, I'm not going to deal with you. But then someone may like define what I say as a traditional liberal, and like, I'm going to deal with you automatically. Or some of the problems I may have was defining the actual questions in ways that they didn't actually mean, and then that leads to a different kind of answer. But yeah, so that's it for this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks a lot for actually listening to this. There's a lot of interesting things you guys can see. This is a lot of material and information here to see where you land on these situations. And I'm pretty sure if I just answered a few of these things in different ways, you'd find that I could just jump from one section to another section. But yeah, if you guys take the test, let me know what you guys actually end up answering as. I might actually go back through and do another one and see if I just switch some things around, what kind of ends up in one kind of situation and what ends up in another kind of situation. But yeah, like, share, and subscribe. Links below to the merchandise store and other things. Goodbye. Okay, a little bonus here. I'm going to go through some of these charts and some of these things to kind of see where I stand on the actual issues, because they have actual issues and say, okay, 90% of this group thinks this on this kind of situation. So let's see how much I actually fit into the traditional liberals kind of group due to the answers to this test. So, okay, so traditional liberals, 11% of the population, tend to be cautious, rational, idealistic. They value tolerance and compromise. They place great faith in institutions. Already, I don't necessarily place faith in the institutions that exist. I think institutions, when actually constructed in a more effective way can actually work. But do I think the current institutions are constructed in the perfect way? No. I really think the public school system is one of the biggest institutions. I already explained how I think the public school system is part of the reason that the American system is so bad, because of the sort of mind, sort of indoctrination that the kids actually put through as they go through the process. And I went to a really exceptional public school system, and I'm imagining just how much worse it could have been for other people, even just at average school, since I was at one of the top level ones. I can't imagine like the lower ones, let alone just the average ones. So that's a rough situation. Like we had a comparative religion course in our class. We had a crew team. Crew team's like the rowing in our school, and the gymnastics. So these are not things that most American schools have. Yet those are things that we had. So some of those things I took for granted, definitely not there in most schools. So my whole experience there was definitely something that it took me to kind of understand. Because I would think I'd be more towards the let's see what traditional conservatives or devoted conservatives think. Are deeply engaged in politics and hold strident, uncompromising views. They feel that America is embattled, and they perceive themselves as the last defenders of traditional values that are under threat. Yeah, I guess that doesn't necessarily fit with me. Tend to be religious, patriotic, and highly moralistic. They believe deeply in personal responsibility and self-reliance as traditional conservatives. See, personal responsibility, self-reliance, yes, definitely not religious. I don't know if I can consider them patriotic. I am not an American citizen yet, but can you be patriotic and not of the country? I don't know. Highly moralistic. I think I have high morals that I stick to. But yeah, let's see here. So DACA. So that's the whole situation with, I think, the Dreamers Act, the people who have been here for over 10 years of their life and their parents were illegal immigrants. So the kind of situation, undocumented immigrants who arrived as children, grown up here, should be protected from deportation and given a chance to earn citizenship. And the government should be able to deport anyone living in America who doesn't have the legal right to be here. I think, yeah, you should definitely deport anybody who's not supposed to be there. Now, they definitely have, they should be able to do it. Now, do they have to do it? There's going to be special dispensations given. So undocumented immigrants. So I think I would kind of, who arrived as children and have grown up here and are protected from deportation to, those were given a chance to earn citizenship. Definitely given a path to citizenship. But my path to citizenship kind of includes, if it takes an American who's born here, an actual child who's actually born in the United States of America and grows up here, they spend those 18 years before they can vote. So one of the simple things I think for me would be, if you get a path to citizenship, you don't get to vote until for 18 years. Or you can have a thing where it's like, okay, if you got here when you're 8, you have to wait, okay, 18 years, so that's like 9. If you got here when you're 9, you have to wait for 18 years. So it goes shorter and shorter. So no, after 9, I think the furthest you can go is 9 years. So if you get here when you're 9, you have to wait for 9 more years. So you can vote when you're 27. If you get here anytime before that, you have to vote 18 years. So if you get here when you're 8, you have to wait the entire time, the entire 18 years that everybody else has to wait for. Now, I think that could be a simple kind of thing that you kind of do. I don't know. I had this kind of thought out in a different way, but definitely have a situation where you can't just automatically get a chance to vote like everybody else. And then if you come in, you have this wait period where American citizens who are born here in the United States of America, who are born in the United States of America, are automatically Americans. People have a certain understanding that it takes a certain time for somebody to understand a culture enough and have the mental capability to actually make at least a somewhat educated vote on any issue. So I think this should apply. Even if somebody comes in as a 50-year-old, give them maybe an 8-year wait period, because in those 8 years, and you can say, yes, that person has been ingrained enough in the American culture and society, and maybe now is invested enough in the society where they have more of an understanding of what makes things work. I personally wouldn't object to that situation. You can still participate in political processes. You can still donate to people. You can still campaign for people. You can still write political articles. You can still be joining actual governmental and political kind of institutions in your local basis or things like that. But you cannot vote yet until you wait. for 8 to 18 years, 9 to 18 years. I would have no problem with that. I don't know if a lot of people would, but that would be my kind of chance to citizenship type of thing. So feminism, you see, why are they talking about atheists? So I'm already an atheist in this situation. Today's fight, feminists fight for important issues. I don't think they do at all. So progressive activists, 96%. Devoted conservatives. Today's feminists just attack men. I don't think they just attack men. I think they also end up harming females. They're just very off there. But I definitely don't think they fight for important issues. So approve Donald J. Trump. Very strong Democrat. I approve Donald J. Trump a lot. So very conservative. I think it'd be on that side. But where I'm at is very liberal, like traditional liberal, so I don't know where that fits in that whole situation. Police brutality. The police are often more violent towards African Americans than others. I don't think it's disproportionately when you see the amount of violence that African Americans commit, then the actual amount of interactions between police and them. Then yeah, I mean, you commit more crimes, you're going to interact with police more, you commit more violent crimes, the police are going to come at you in a setting where you committed violent crime versus doing like a white collar crime. A policeman, there was this Chappelle Show skit where they're talking about like what if white people were arrested like black people. This guy committed like some kind of like stock fraud thing, some kind of white collar thing with like stocks and things like that. They just jumped into his house like, shut that dog up, and they threw like a grenade and blew up the dog and things like that. But yeah, depending on your crime, you're going to be approached by police in a different kind of way. So if you're committing armed robbery, you're going to be approached by the police in a different way than if you just did like some stocks trading kind of insider trading thing. So that's going to be a different kind of situation. But yeah, I think police are mostly fair towards people of every race. It's actually shown across the board. I mean, from the actual figures, I think that bears out. So here it's going to actually explain why the wings, progressive activists and devoted conservatives today combine 11% of the American population. Yet it often feels that as if our national colonization has been a shouting match between these two groups and the furthest ends of the spectrum. That's one thing I do completely agree with. And yeah, so devoted conservatives. So they're going now. These are the beliefs between the two people on the edges and two wings. Exhausted majority. They're fed up with polarization. I think yeah, that kind of fits with me. Issues that divide us, racial injustice, sex, gender, and morality, terrorism, and Islam, consistent across issues. So let's see this one. Immigration impact. Let's see if I actually fall across the traditional liberals. Immigration is good for America, helping sectors of our economy to be more successful and competitive. Immigration nowadays is bad for America, costing the welfare system and the resources that should be spent on Americans. I would say the current immigration system is broken as is. It definitely needs fixing because right now a lot of immigration is just illegal immigration coming across the border, illegal immigration coming in from China, people overstaying their visas. And I kind of think some of the solution would be taking out the welfare system. This is another situation. Have a situation where maybe if you come in as an immigrant, you're not allowed to get the welfare system, you're not allowed to be on the welfare system for a certain number of years. Again, it could be the 9 to 18 years or whatever. Let's say 9 years. So it gets to that point where you're very limited in that situation. Most people will self-deport on their own. So in this situation, do I think immigration is good for America? Immigration itself is not bad, but what sort of immigration? The current immigration system right now, I don't think it's helping as much as is thought. So I'd be somewhere in the middle with this one. Sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is commonplace nowadays. Nowadays, too many ordinary behaviors. So yeah, you see with that one, I believe too many ordinary behaviors are being labeled as sexual harassment. So traditional liberals would be in this 26%. Police brutality. Police are more often violent towards African Americans. Wasn't that the same question up here? No, that was higher below. So yes, you see with this one, I am in the 22%. Terrorism. They're extremists in every religion. Of course they are, but Islam does have... You see, this is a weird thing. People talk about how whites are disproportionately represented in certain situations, even though I don't think they are. But they talk about they'll talk about the few white people in positions of power and say that defines the entire group of white people, yet they don't see the relatively small amount of Muslims that commit a vast majority of these terrorist acts globally. There's something specific about Islam that I think very problematic that some people don't really want to discuss. So right now, globally, Islam definitely does seem to be committing a lot more terrorism. And the people who suffer the most from it, in this case, are actually also Muslims. More Muslims are targeted by other Muslims over this. Right now, depending on the whole situation for different cultural reasons, they seem to have a lot of issues. And just saying that in this video might actually get this video flagged, might get this video taken down. But hey, I said it. There we go. So I think we're going to leave it here. Let's see what else we're going with here. What causes success in life? People who work hard. So traditional liberals think people who work hard can find success no matter what situation they're born into. Some people's situations are too challenging. Now you see with this one, I think I was just defining it in the wrong way, not in the sense that they were. They were talking about just in general. They're not talking about the different kind of levels of success. In this situation, they'd probably define success as being upper middle class in the United States of America and just saying a certain amount per capita, you have to have a family that's making $120,000 to do that, means anybody can do that. And even with that sense, I've heard stats by people like Thomas Sowell, people who stay, the upper class in the United States of America doesn't normally just stay fixed. It's normally people rotating their life. You start your life, once you leave your home, you graduate, you're normally rather low, and then slowly by slowly you kind of peak up, and then there's a point in your life where I think he said something like at least 40% or something of your average American gets into a situation where they actually are in the upper class and then they can dip down. People kind of move as they go in the situation. Like she put an example where he owned a house and he got to a point where when he sold the house, after he had sold the house, technically for a few months, he was in the upper class because of the amount of money he got from selling that house. And then he got to the point where he's like, okay, now he's going to buy another house to actually live in, and then he dips back into the middle class. And that's the kind of situation, the trajectory a lot of Americans have. At the start of your life, when you're in your 20s, you're normally like in the lower class, and you get to the middle class, and you keep going up, and you get older, you get to that point, and you level out when you're not working anymore. You have your peak earning years in your 40s to 50s and things like that. That's when you're normally higher. And then you start going lower in the situation. You're not working as much. Other people are doing things. Your investments are in different situations. So there's kind of a tough thing. How do you define success? And I think in that kind of situation, people can kind of go around. So yeah, this is an interesting test. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye.